Hey Indian Creek 8th grade students, it's Professor Blazek and I'm here in this video to talk to you about Stave 4 in A Christmas Carol in our Reading Companion series. In this video we're going to be looking at the important characters and important scenes from Stave 4 in the story. So some things to consider while you're reading Stave 4. First of all, be sure to keep in mind the appearance of the third spirit and what it represents, both for Scrooge and for the story overall. You want to keep in mind any changes in the old Scrooge's character. This is something, obviously, that we've been doing through the entire story, tracking his revolution from an old and cold, miserly man to hopefully a reformed, contributing member to society. You also want to look at the attitudes of the townspeople at the various places that the final spirit takes Scrooge. The way that they're talking, the things that they're doing are all important to the story. And also the symbolism of the final scene in Stave 4, which takes place in a graveyard. So some new characters who are introduced in Stave 4. Obviously the first one is the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. This is the final spirit to visit Ebenezer Scrooge. He, as you can see from the picture, has a very Grim Reaper-esque appearance. He is shrouded, there is no face, there's no real body, it's really just a big hooded cloak. There is described to being like one hand that Scrooge can see, and otherwise there is really no identity given to this spirit. So it is very much a haunting appearance, very mysterious. And Charles Dickens did this because obviously the future is very much a mystery. There is not anything that we can possibly really truly know about what's going to happen in the future. And so this spirit's appearance just really goes to reinforce that. And also, obviously, the second connection is that obviously the one thing that we all can count on in the future is that death will follow. And so it makes sense that there would be a connection between this spirit and a image that is obviously meant to represent people passing away. Now, this is the only spirit that does not ever speak to Scrooge. It only instructs him by pointing and by leading places. And again, this just reinforces the idea that we can never truly know what's going to happen in the future. The spirit cannot give Scrooge any concrete information, and that really ties in with the idea of the story that Scrooge is getting the chance to reform his ways, to change the future, so there really would be no point, there would be no way to tell him exactly what's going to happen, because the whole point of the story is that he gets to make the future into whatever he chooses. This spirit also intimidates Scrooge far more than the other two spirits. The Ghost of Christmas Past was both childlike and very aged, but also somewhat comforting. We talked about the light aspect that it had in showing him the past. Obviously, the Ghost of Christmas Present was this jovial and kind giant, whereas this Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, again, just symbolizing the mystery that the future holds, is very, very intimidating and very unnerving to Scrooge. And again, this is because most people fear what will happen in the future far, far more than what has already happened, because what's already been in the past is in the past. There's no way to change it, but everything about the future can be changed even in one moment. Some other characters who are introduced are Old Joe and a group of looters. You can see them here in this illustration. Now, Old Joe is the owner of a quote-unquote trade shop. He operates in a very shady, very run-down part of town, and his shop is for people to bring in goods, and they get cash for what they bring in. Now, Joe is shown to be very much careful about how much he gives away. He is not interested in, giving away a large sum of money. This is more for people in the lower classes to just bring in things and get something. And he also does not care how the items came to be in his possession. He just knows that they're there. He tells his people what he's willing to pay for them, and that's really the whole operation of his business. Whereas the looters, working along with Joe, are a group of low-class people who have looted the home of this dead man that everybody around town is talking about. And they have taken a plethora of items, from buttons all the way up to his blankets and his bed curtains. And these are very, very private and personal items. And it shows that there is absolutely no respect for this deceased man's privacy. These people are just out to make whatever money they can, and they could not care less about the fact that, the man was said to be literally lying dead in the room when some of these people were taking these items. So it really just shows the disrespect that these people feel towards this deceased person. Now, there are two deaths to look at going along with the Grim Reaper-esque appearance of the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come that we see in Stave 4. The first is in the Cratchit family, and sadly, just as the Ghost of Christmas Present told Scrooge, in the future, Tiny Tim has passed away, and the Cratchit family is obviously very upset, very shaken, and even Bob himself, when he comes home, goes upstairs to an empty room and is just completely breaking down. But the love and support that he gets from the rest of his family, and even describing the support he gets from Scrooge's nephew Fred, helps Bob and the rest of the family come together in so difficult a time. So showing the strength that love and hope have within this admittedly lower class family just reinforces the strength in that relationship. On the other hand, there are a number of scenes that show people discussing the death of an unnamed man. And each scene shows that there are people who are much happier off that this man has died. For example, there's one family who talks about that now that he is dead, they might be able to keep their home. And in other scenes, the people who are talking are just basically discussing how bad of a person this unnamed man is. And then obviously, we find out that the unnamed man is Ebenezer Scrooge in the final scene of the Stave. It's sort of building towards that. Obviously that would be the point, that would be the suggestion of the story, that nobody is going to greet Scrooge's death with anything but celebration. And this is what really drives that, excuse the pun, final nail in the coffin for Scrooge to make his changes, although we've been seeing these changes throughout the majority of the story. So that's all for this video, talking about important characters and important scenes in Stave 4. I'll be back soon with a second video about important passages from the Stave. And until then, this has been Professor Blazek, signing off.